everyone. I'm so excited that you're with us for the Divorcing Intact. I'm so grateful during this busy tax time to have Hirsch Serman with me. I wanted to make sure I said your name right. So hi, Hirsch.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so grateful
Thank you
for
having me
you.
on.
I'm so grateful. I'm just going to read a little bit and then we're going to talk about, the amazing support that you have for people going through divorce and also your show. So Hirsch has an MBA, is a CPA, and a CDFA. You'll have to explain what that one is because I don't know that one. And you specialize in the financial and tax aspects of divorce. His value-based approach to prioritizing, organizing, and simplifying your financial life during and beyond the divorce process. That already lowers my stress level. Just that line that you do, like I could feel it, like organize and simplify. God bless you. Hirsch is committed to helping each client understand the more complex tax and financial implications of her and his specific situation. So welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. This is exciting, and the event you put together is an amazing event. People should get tremendous amount out of it.
Well, I think what is so powerful about the group that's coming together, it's really to answer that question, like what you don't know that you should know now, because you're really like dropped in a foreign land, and
Yes.
especially when you have so much fear. So what do you think the first thing someone should do, like to prepare themselves financially for a divorce?
I think the first thing is you need to take a step back and you need to breathe. People kind of try to jump in, I think, sometimes too quickly, and they're not sure. Like you said, they're very unfamiliar with it, especially if they were not the ones dealing with the finances. They're not going to be understanding what direction they want to go in right now. So I think taking a step back and understanding or getting to know your financial picture is a very, very important piece of it. Then with that, you can do them at the same time because it doesn't take a minute to learn your finances. I think starting to really understand what are your values, what are your priorities, because these are going to be the guiding lights through this emotional fog and this, as you said, being dropped in a foreign land. And I think those are two very, very important things. You had mentioned I'm a CDFA. Just quickly, that's a certified divorce financial analyst. It's a 1-year course that you can go through in order to really delve into all the financial aspects relating to divorce. You take an exam. It's, along with the CPA and the CDFA, it becomes a very powerful combination to work with people and a good depth of knowledge.
Well, I appreciate that so much, because when you're dumped into the system, because it's such a system to get a divorce, right?
Yeah.
You really don't know where to start. And that's why your services are so important. Like, I wish I knew that, 10 years ago when I was starting out on this. What do you do then after you identify your priorities and your values? Like, what would be the next step for someone?
So it's interesting because the next step is actually sometimes counterintuitive to people. We then do the same exercise with your spouse, meaning you identifying what you believe your spouse's values and priorities are. The reason that I do it this way, and it's not a common practice, it's something that I've developed, is if we know what your values are and your priorities related to this divorce, and we can at least guess at, if not know, what the spouses are, it sets up a lot of the ability to create a strategy. It also creates a lot of understanding where the more difficult conversations are going to be. Just 1 or 2 quick examples to bring that to light. If both of you really want the house, that's a difficult conversation. So now we got to strategize around that. What would I be willing to give up? Mm-hmm. Or what would he or she want to give me the house, right? So we can start to create a strategy or understand things that need to be in the strategy. That's number one. Number two is we can identify certain things. I had a quick I had a conversation, this is going back about 4 or 5 months. We're going through this exercise, and when it came to debt, my client said, oh, my husband is terrified of debt. And I said, well, tell me more about that. And apparently, when he was a kid, they went bankrupt, the family. They ate in food kitchens and just has always had this fear of debt. Well, they had still racked up about $38,000 in credit card debt. So I said to her, look, you're going to get 50% of that anyway, 19,000 roughly. I said, tell them that you want assets to cover it, but you also want 2 years worth of interest, right? He didn't want to carry any debt. So we went to them saying, give us 2 years worth of interest, and then something else that we want, and then we could win. Because when you think about 2 years of interest on a credit card, it's almost 50% to begin with. So you've already eliminated his half with the interest that you got up front, but now you've asked for something else as well that you've got to win on. Does that make sense?
No, it's perfect. And I love what you're saying, because I love how your mind works, because you look at it differently. I think for me, because I help women and, you know, go through the emotional side of that.
Right.
I love, like, you have such crystal clear, like, okay, this is how we can solve this issue. And it addresses the emotional component for both of them in that scenario.
Right. And I will say, it's so important to be creative. A lot of people come in thinking it's 50% on retirement, 50% on the savings. And then I say, well, are you going to live on the left side or the right side of the house? And they go, oh, I didn't think about that. It doesn't have to be. That's kind of the starting point, maybe, but it doesn't have to be. That's, number one. Number two is, it's very, very important. You asked me kind of the next steps. It's very important, I think, that people create a budget. And I do budgets differently. I actually created a divorce budget, which is a weird thing to create if you think about it, but it's very, very helpful. The first thing is, most people don't have a budget. About 70% of households in America don't have a budget. With that said, those that do, it's kind of a what comes in, what goes out, put a prayer in that there's something at the bottom line. I do it differently. I actually ignore income up front. I look at only your essential spend. What is the absolute to get through the month? Then we look at your discretionary or that non-essential spend. Mm-hmm. And now we've got a range that we know, the top line being all in, the bottom line being what I absolutely need to get through. So that's another key thing, is separating your essential and your non-essential. And then we can look at that. How does that play into your spending habits? Do you really want all of that non-essential spend? Does it really bring you joy? Does it align with the values that we were speaking about? Right? And now, again, it's part of that strategy. I know what I want at the end because I've identified my values and my priorities, which do change, by the way. I don't want people to, they shouldn't think, oh, I used to think that was a priority, now I think this is. That happens. But with the values and priorities, the top level of spending, meaning all in, this is my total spend, I can now come up with a strategy. I know what I can't go below. I know what my starting point is, and I'm going to come in somewhere in between. That's the goal.
Yeah, I love that. And it is a little different if you're dealing with a high conflict person, though, too, because in some cases, a lot of my clients are, and I know we didn't discuss this beforehand, but they're, some of them have given up their careers to be at home parents.
Yes.
And so when, you're talking about, your budget or being engaged in the financial situation, a lot of that has been taken away because of, the personality type of controlling the budget. Right. So I think, there's could be a lot of anxiety, but having someone like you to walk them through that, because I know for myself, my priorities were to help my children get through college. That was the top priority. But how do you address that when you have maybe someone who is so disconnected because of the situation?
So that's a really, really good question. The first thing is, then we need to create a budget, and it might take longer, obviously, if you're less familiar, but I walk you through the pieces. Let's look at your housing. Let's look at your grocery and your household goods and, the things that you buy kind of regularly. Let's look at your recreation. I've got a budget that I've created, a template, and we can run through it at their pace. So we would. And part of my role also is being realistic. Somebody says, I want it all. Well, then you're going to go to court. Those are the things that people need to understand. As realistic as you can be. And again, sometimes you need somebody to, reality test that, if I can call it that. I think that's another piece that, just is part of the conversations as we go. I think the other piece, though, is when it comes to high conflict, one of the nice things about the budget is, you're not going to come in at that top number. So you can constantly tell them how you've given something up. Now it's their chance.
Yes.
We know we're not going to come. I'm going to pick up numbers here. If somebody spends, $15,000 a month, or that's what they say they want, they know they only need $10,000 a month. Now they're at 14,000, but hey, I've just given up 1,000. Now I'm at 13. I've just given up another 1,000. So it's a way to show, even though you know that you're not getting it.
Yeah.
It's part of the positioning of that strategy, in being able to say to them, look, I've now given up 2,000 from my original ask. What are you giving up? We got to both give up.
I appreciate that. I really, really do, because that speaks to like their highest value, which is winning,
Right. Absolutely.
And the interesting thing, Hirsch, is in my side with the emotional component going through it, a lot of women who were the primary parents, stay at home, they have a mindset that their financial money isn't theirs. It's the other person's.
Absolutely.
And
that's
so what you're doing,
advocate.
Yeah. So what you're doing is shifting the perception of, no, it's not all his or hers. It's both of you. It's a joint marital asset.
Correct. And the way that I kind of help people recognize that is, number one, the chances are they would not be earning the money they are without the support that you've given. That's number one. That's not as tangible always. But where you can bring it a little bit more tangible is, how much would you have to pay somebody to come cook for you for 7 days? How much would it have cost you to have an au pair who runs the children around to school, to activities, to whatever? And now we start saying, oh, you put in 40 hours a week at home. How much would that have cost you?
Right.
So yes,
Right.
You've contributed by saving money, which now is in the bank account.
I love what you're saying, Hirsch, because so much of unwinding, the high conflict, and I'm going to use the word abuse, is invisible. And so what you just did right now, and I got a little goosebumps, is, make it like, this is real. We see you. We know what you've done. You're entitled to, and you validate that. That was just wonderful, because that seems to be a theme as of late. Like the people that are coming for support, feeling like it's not theirs. Because
I run into that a fair bit. And the truth is, a marriage is a partnership. This partnership is dissolving, being a little callous with the way that's said, I understand, but it's a partnership. In any business partnership, you don't turn around and say, oh, well, you didn't contribute as much as I thought you were going to contribute. You don't get anything. We don't look at it that way on the business side, right? And I think, unfortunately, often, I don't want to say always, but often, the person has been treated in a way through that marriage that has now led to that feeling.
Yes.
But if they kind of think about the day after they got married, did they have that feeling? Or did they feel, this is us?
Right.
We're in it together. These are our things, right? And so bringing that perspective, but also bringing what I think a lot of people have lost, the value of what they've brought. Even though it's not a paycheck, the value of what they've brought is significant.
I love that.
And they need to be a piece of that and get that into their mindset again.
that's part of the healing from, regardless of what your situation is, but it's the value. And that's what you opened with. You opened
Yeah.
with, we determine your value. And part of that's why I, love spending time with you, is that we are both instilling or rebirthing or waking up again that personal value. And I do it through emotions, but you do it through the financial piece.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think
so
I've shared with
important.
you the very first blog I ever wrote was actually originally called Divorce is Awesome, right? And I had to change the name to Perspective is Everything, but the message was the exact same message. And that really was, I thought my life had died this horrible, excruciating death, but there really is an opportunity that comes with it. And one of them, I think, often is connecting with yourself again and understanding who you are, that you've lost over time too often.
Yes.
And that's a big piece of this. But understanding yourself, understanding the financials, and helping people look beyond the divorce becomes a very, very important piece as well. The two things I say to every single client: number one, emotions can be the most expensive part of your divorce, number one. And number two, this is not the last chapter in this part of your life. It's the first chapter in the rest. Let's set it up for the rest of your life. That's really the goal here.
I love that. And I think that's a perfect way to stop, but just share that all your information and how to find you will be underneath the video link. And to make sure people know that you have your radio show that I love.
I do, and I'm looking forward to having back on.
Yeah, and you can find that on CC's Going Solo Network.
Correct.
And you also have a little a goodie. I call them goodies, but you're offering.
I am. Anyone who is interested in learning a little bit more, doing a free consultation, they're usually around 45 minutes. What I do in that, obviously, they know a little bit about me now if they've been listening, but really it's to explore and help you understand your situation a little bit more. And then what I do is help you map out, or what I would suggest to be your next steps in moving forward, whether you're contemplating, whether you're in the middle, and even if you're after and still struggling with certain things, but what would be those next steps are very, very key, I think, sometimes for people to know.
I think that's so important, because having that like written down, or knowing like you have options, like that you can do this and you could do this, but what you feel comfortable with is so important. You're such a gift, Hirsch, and I'm so grateful for you and your time. And I'm sure everybody who's listening found that little nugget.
I very much appreciate you including me in this. I'm sure that people are going to love it, and probably hoping that you'll not wait a full year for the next one. So
maybe we'll see. Thank you so much.
thank you. Be
Bye-bye.
well, and good luck to everybody.